Welcome to a One Storyteller, where we bring you the most gripping and eye-opening real-life stories. Today's story is one that will leave you speechless, a tale of arrogance, injustice, and ultimate karma. This is the story of a racist cop who thought he could get away with harassing a black woman, only to find out she was the FBI chief. 5 minutes later, his career was over. Buckle up, because this is one story you won't forget. It was a crisp autumn morning in downtown Atlanta. The sun was shining, but the tension in the air was thick. Officer Chad Miller, a 15-year veteran of the police force, leaned against his patrol car, sipping his morning coffee. He was known for being aggressive, especially toward minorities. His colleagues often whispered about his questionable tactics, but nobody dared to challenge him. He had friends in high places, or so he thought. As he scanned the streets, he noticed a black woman in an expensive tailored suit stepping out of a sleek black SUV. Her posture was confident, her expression unreadable. Chad's prejudices kicked in immediately. "Who does she think she is?" he muttered to himself. With a smirk, he threw his coffee cup into the trash and adjusted his belt. He walked over, his boots clanking against the pavement, and called out in the condescending tone he often reserved for people of color. "Hey, you, where do you think you're going?" The woman, unfazed, turned to face him. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. She glanced at his badge and then back at his face. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm but firm. Chad sneered. "You don't belong here. This is a federal building. We don't need people loitering around. Let me see some ID." She raised an eyebrow, but instead of arguing, she reached into her purse and pulled out a sleek black leather wallet. When she flipped it open, Chad's cocky smirk faded. His eyes widened as he read the words embossed in gold. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Chief Special Agent Maya Robinson. A chill ran down his spine. He had just harassed one of the most powerful law enforcement officers in the country. "Is this ID good enough for you, officer?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. For the first time in his career, Chad was speechless. His throat went dry, and he could feel the sweat forming on his brow. He had just made the biggest mistake of his life. But the worst was yet to come. Chad Miller's hands trembled slightly as he stared at the badge in front of him. His mind raced, trying to find a way out of this mess, but every possible excuse died in his throat. This wasn't just some random woman he could intimidate. This was FBI Chief Maya Robinson, a name he had definitely heard before. He cleared his throat and forced a chuckle. "Oh, I was just doing my job, ma'am. Just routine security measures, you know," he stammered, attempting to backpedal. Maya's expression remained unreadable. She slowly closed her badge wallet and placed it back in her purse, then crossed her arms. "Routine security measures?" she repeated, her tone even. "Tell me, Officer Miller, do you stop every single person walking into this building, or just the ones who look like me?" Chad opened his mouth, but no words came out. His silence spoke volumes. Maya took a step closer, her presence commanding. "I have worked in law enforcement for over 2 decades, and I can spot a racist officer from a mile away. I bet if I checked your record, I'd find plenty of complaints, excessive force, racial profiling, maybe even some conveniently lost body cam footage." Chad's face turned red. "Now, hold on," he sputtered. "That's a serious accusation. You can't just—" Maya pulled out her phone and made a quick call. "Director Langston, this is Robinson. I need you to check the record of Officer Chad Miller, Atlanta PD." "Yes, right now. I'll wait." Chad's stomach dropped. She wasn't bluffing. A few tense moments passed. Chad could feel his fellow officers watching from a distance, too afraid to intervene. Then Maya's phone beeped. She put it on speaker. "Miller has a history, all right," came the voice of Director Langston. 15 civilian complaints in the last 5 years, 6 use-of-force incidents, all against black or Latino individuals, no disciplinary action taken. Until now. Maya looked Chad dead in the eyes. "I assume you know what this means," she asked. Chad's mouth went dry. His career was crumbling before his very eyes. The fall of Officer Miller. Within minutes, 2 internal affairs officers arrived. The murmurs among the gathered officers grew louder. Chad could feel their eyes on him. Some shocked, others satisfied. One of the IA officers, a tall, no-nonsense woman with a badge that read Serbash Lorraine Banks, stepped forward. "Officer Miller, you are being placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending an internal investigation. Hand over your badge and weapon." Chad's heart pounded. "You can't do this," he shouted. "This is my career. You have no proof of anything." Maya tilted her head. "No proof? You just racially profiled me, a high-ranking federal officer in broad daylight, in front of multiple witnesses. You really think this is the first time you've pulled something like this?" Chad gritted his teeth, his face turning red with anger. "This is all political. You people always—" "Finish that sentence, Miller," Maya interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. Chad snapped his mouth shut. He knew he had lost. With shaking hands, he unfastened his belt and pulled out his gun, placing it in the IA officer's hands. Then he reached for his badge, the same badge he had flashed arrogantly so many times before, and slowly handed it over. The moment it left his fingers, he felt a crushing weight settle in his chest. "You will be notified about your disciplinary hearing," Sergeant Banks said. "Until then, do not report to duty. Do not interfere with the investigation. Do not contact any witnesses." Maya watched as Chad's shoulders slumped. His career, his power, was gone. 5 minutes, she murmured to herself. That's all it took. And with that, she turned on her heel and walked into the building, leaving Officer Chad Miller standing there, his career in ruins. The fallout from the incident was swift and brutal. The Atlanta PD, already under fire for racial discrimination cases, had no choice but to take action. News outlets caught wind of the story, and within 24 hours, Chad Miller's name was plastered across headlines. Atlanta cop suspended after confronting FBI chief in racial profiling incident. Social media exploded. Hashtags like "Justice Served" and "Miller Exposed" trended for days. People began sharing their own horror stories about Chad Miller, proving that his racism had long been an open secret. 3 weeks later, the Internal Affairs report was released. It was damning. It confirmed that Chad Miller had a pattern of targeting minorities, falsifying reports, and using excessive force. Under public pressure, the department had no choice but to fire him. Miller tried to appeal, but it was useless. His police career was over. Maya, on the other hand, continued her work as FBI chief, using her influence to push for stronger accountability in law enforcement. She never forgot that moment outside the federal building, the moment a racist cop learned that power doesn't protect you from consequences. This has been a One Storyteller, bringing you real-life stories that shock, inspire, and make you think. What do you think about Officer Miller's downfall? Did justice come fast enough, or was it long overdue? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you love this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful tales like this one. Until next time, remember, justice always finds a way.